Like dragons in House of the Dragon, direwolves were an essential part of the unique world-building in Game of Thrones from start to finish. Based on the A Song of Ice and Fire novels by George R.R. Martin, the coveted HBO series is known as a low-magic fantasy. Unlike Lord of the Rings, where wizards roam the lands and immortal Dark Lords summon armies to wage war, Game of Thrones exists in a world where magic is believed to have died out and where mystical beasts are the subject of legend. That's part of what makes the direwolves so exciting. In the TV show's opening episode, audiences are introduced to the many beloved members of House Stark. After a lovely beheading scene to prepare the viewers' tastes for George R.R. Martin's twisted mind, the Starks return to Winterfell, where they discover a dead mother direwolf with a stag's horn pierced through it, leaving a bloody mess. Left behind are 6 direwolf cubs, perfectly fit for the 6 Stark children, including a special albino baby for Jon Snow. Aside from the scene's foreshadowing of Ned Stark's death, it's a vital world-building moment. Game of Thrones may not be a traditional fantasy series, but protagonists being paired with extraordinary mythical creatures lends itself to more typical genre norms. Direwolves in Martin's world are expected to grow to the size of ponies, offering a truly exciting premise for the show's first episode. The 6 direwolves in Game of Thrones range in their impact on the show, as some don't last very long, and others are primarily in the background. Lady Sansa Stark's direwolf doesn't last very long. Sophie Turner as Sansa walking with Lady in Game of Thrones. Sansa Stark's direwolf is named Lady, which corresponds to her desires early in Game of Thrones to be a proper noblewoman as Ned Stark's eldest daughter. Lady is the smallest in the litter and quickly bonds with her human companion. Unfortunately, Lady doesn't last very long and isn't even mentioned after her death in the show's second episode. For that reason, she's the show's worst direwolf, though it's vital to mention that she offers some necessary dramatic purpose in Season 1. Audiences quickly grew to despise Joffrey Baratheon, so much as to say he's one of the easiest to hate TV characters ever. The young Lannister prince doesn't give off the best vibe in the opening episode, but it's episode 2 where the viewer really sees his true colors, and the hatred begins. Joffrey and Arya's conflict over her sword practice leads to Cersei demanding Lady and Nymeria, Arya's direwolf, be executed. Joffrey is utterly detestable, but the episode also establishes an essential dynamic between Ned, Cersei, and Robert Baratheon that plays out through Season 1. Ned and Cersei are natural rivals, and Robert is the only thing standing in the way of utter chaos and bloodshed between Starks and Lannisters. With that in mind, it's sad that Lady goes so early, but she plays an important role in her limited time. Not to mention, the scene of Ned executing her is one of the most tear-jerking Game of Thrones moments, guaranteed to make fans cry. Lady is a sweet direwolf, but she simply doesn't last long enough to compete. After 6 seasons as a supporting character in Game of Thrones, it's highly likely that many audiences have forgotten about the youngest Stark sibling and, even more so, his direwolf. Rickon Stark remains by Bran's side for the show's first 3 seasons before he and Osha leave to take shelter with House Umber rather than joining for the adventure beyond the wall. Rickon Stark's direwolf, Shaggy Dog, accompanies Bran, Osha, Hodder, Jojen, and Mira in their travels in Season 3, then disappears with his human companion for a significant portion of the series. Rickon Stark returns briefly in Season 6 for a devastating scene in The Battle of the Bastards, when he's sent to run toward Jon, dodging arrows fired at him by Ramsay Bolton. Of course, Rickon Stark perishes at this moment. Earlier in Season 6, Shaggy Dog actually appeared first. Or, at least, part of him did. The Umbers betrayed the Starks, taking Rickon, Osha, and Shaggy Dog prisoner for years. They then butcher Shaggy Dog and present his head to Ramsay to validate that Rickon is who they say he is. Unfortunately for both Rickon and Shaggy Dog, neither plays a particularly important role in the overarching narrative of Game of Thrones. The direwolf barely has the edge over Lady just because it lasted a while and at least sees a bit of action in Season 3. In the Season 3 finale, Shaggy Dog helps Jon Snow fight off some wildlings, aided by the direwolf Summer, who's being warged by Bran.